And now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, that's right, Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please?
On a night no one would forget, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, fought to save his legacy, facing a world that had already begun to write him off. Once an icon, he'd been pushed into Hollywood's grip, with stale films and a polished image that dimmed his spark. But then came 1968, a risky chance, a holiday special he'd secretly twist into a revolution of raw talent and rock fury. Tune in to find out just how far the king would go to reclaim his throne. Elvis breaks Hollywood's chains and reclaims rock. The king of rock and roll stood at a crossroads. Once adored by millions, his fame seemed to be fading as his movies flopped and his songs lost their charm in a fast-evolving music world. People began to question whether his reign was over, wondering if the spark that had set the world on fire was now little more than embers. The rumors grew louder, whispers that he had become a relic of a past era. Just when all seemed lost, he made a choice that left everyone wondering, was this his big comeback? As the 1960s marched on, his struggles intensified. Though he had dominated the music charts and starred in films that thrilled audiences in the 1950s, the magic was fading. His movie roles had become predictable and uninspired, films with shallow plots that failed to showcase his true talent. Audiences grew weary of the same formula, and the critics didn't hold back, calling him a sellout, a star who had sacrificed artistry for easy cash. The daring artist who had once revolutionized music was now just another Hollywood face in a sea of commercialism. He was trapped, sidelined by a music world surging forward with new ideas and bold sounds. Meanwhile, music was changing at lightning speed. Bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were sweeping the globe, leading a cultural revolution that pushed the boundaries of music and art. Psychedelic rock, protest anthems, and experimental sounds defined the new era. Once the embodiment of rebellion and youth suddenly seemed outdated, a polished figure frozen in time as the world embraced fresh, powerful voices. The strain was visible, and those closest to him could see it. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, kept him locked in a cage of commercialized roles, forbidding him from breaking free and exploring his creativity. But he longed to do more. He wanted to return to his roots, to become more than a puppet in Hollywood's vast machine. He felt a restless energy, a desire to remind the world of who he truly was. He yearned to show the world that the king of rock and roll wasn't gone. He had just been waiting to rise again. And then, in 1968, an unexpected opportunity arrived. NBC offered him a television special, a holiday program that would be safe, cheerful, and, above all, predictable. But tired of the predictable, he saw a glimmer of opportunity in this proposal. Working with producer Steve Binder, he decided to transform this simple holiday special into a bold statement. It wouldn't be a routine holiday performance, it would be a declaration, a thrilling comeback that would show the world that he was still a force to be reckoned with. He poured his heart and soul into what became known as the Comeback Special. This wasn't just a performance, it was a moment of raw emotion and pure energy that captivated audiences and silenced the critics. Binder pushed him to shed the clean, polished image that had come to define him. He encouraged him to be vulnerable, to show his true self, and he delivered with electric intensity, embodying the spirit of rock and roll with every move. The 1968 Comeback Special was groundbreaking. Divided into segments that showcased different facets of his talent, it reminded audiences of the rebellious, charismatic artist they had fallen in love with years earlier. The sit-down segment was especially powerful. Seated in an intimate setting with close friends and bandmates, he played his guitar, laughed, and performed his classic hits with a sincerity that reminded fans of his early days. This wasn't Hollywood him. This was the real him, a man passionate about his music, unapologetically himself. It was as if time had turned back, and the world could once again witness the hunger and fire of the young rock and roll pioneer. Then came the stand-up segment, where he took the stage in a sleek, black leather outfit that would become iconic. He radiated confidence, power, and charisma, belting out his songs with a passion that left the audience breathless. The black leather suit symbolized his return to form, a powerful reminder of the rebellious spirit that had first captured the hearts of millions. In those moments, he wasn't just performing, he was reclaiming his crown. He stood before the world, no longer as a fading star, but as the rightful king of rock and roll. The comeback special was more than a performance. It was a statement that he was here to stay. He wasn't content to rest on past glories. He embraced new material, performing songs like "If I Can Dream," a powerful anthem that resonated with a changing America. Inspired by the recent assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, the song captured the hope and longing of a generation yearning for peace and unity. This wasn't the lighthearted style of Hollywood's design. This was a socially aware, impassioned artist pouring his heart into every note. The comeback special was a rebirth for him, a thrilling reminder of his talent and spirit. It breathed new life into his career and cemented his place in music history as an eternal icon. He reminded the world and himself that the king of rock and roll was still alive, still vibrant, and still capable of igniting a room with his sheer presence. The world would never forget that electrifying night in 1968. He had reclaimed his throne and his name was etched into the annals of rock and roll forever. This was more than a comeback. It was the revival of a legend, a timeless testament to the power of passion, resilience, and the enduring spirit of a true artist. Elvis took the stage, ready to prove he still had it. Elvis's electrifying comeback special. After the success of the comeback special, he was energized and ready to dive back into the spotlight. He knew he had more to give, and he refused to let the momentum slip away. Just a few months later, he embarked on a new chapter, launching a series of live performances in Las Vegas that would become legendary. Night after night, he mesmerized audiences with his powerful voice, magnetic stage presence, and unmatched charisma. The king was back, reminding the world that he still belonged at the top. His return to live performances marked a shift in his career. He was no longer bound by the formulaic Hollywood roles that had stifled his creativity. Instead, he reclaimed his identity as the king of rock and roll, performing with a passion and energy that hadn't been seen in years. His Vegas concerts were an enormous success, drawing crowds and winning rave reviews. This was him at his best, singing live, connecting with fans, and proving to the world that his reign was far from over. His story teaches a timeless lesson. Never give up. Even when it seems like the world has moved on, there's always a chance to rise again. With one bold move, he changed everything. And that's why, even today, he remains the king. As he stepped onto the stage that night, he did so with purpose. This wasn't just another performance. It was a message to everyone who had doubted him, everyone who had thought his magic was gone. He knew he still had it, and with every song, every move, he reminded everyone of exactly why he was the king. This wasn't a comeback. It was a powerful return that reclaimed his throne in music history. The air was electric as he took the stage. Fans held their breath as he launched into hits like Heartbreak Hotel, Hound Dog, and Jailhouse Rock. Each song was bold, energetic, a declaration that he was still a force to be reckoned with. And then came the moment that would become legendary, the black leather suit. This wasn't the glittering costume of Hollywood him. This was the look of a rebel. In that leather suit, he shed the polished image and reconnected with his roots, reminding everyone of the raw, daring artist they had fallen in love with in the 1950s. Standing there, guitar in hand and a smirk on his face, he cast off the Hollywood persona he had been trapped in for so long. This was no puppet show. This was him reclaiming his identity as the rock and roll icon he had always been. For those in the studio audience that night, the energy was unforgettable. Producer Steve Binder described it as magic in the air, a feeling that was impossible to ignore. He had been nervous, uncertain of how he would be received after so many years out of the spotlight. But the moment he started singing, any doubts melted away. The audience was swept up in his charisma and energy, a powerful reminder that he was far from finished. Behind the scenes, his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had fought to keep the special safe, controlled, and pre-recorded. Parker wanted him to stick to a predictable format, one that would minimize risks. But he refused to play it safe. He wanted real, raw, and honest. He wanted and needed to prove himself in the truest way possible. By choosing to perform live, he put everything on the line, stepping away from Hollywood's safety net. In the sit-down segment, he appeared stripped of pretense, surrounded by friends and fans, performing with nothing but his guitar and a small band. This was him at his most authentic, sharing an intimate connection with the audience. For many, it was like seeing the hymn of the 1950s all over again, fearless, real, and undeniably magnetic. Critics and fans celebrated the comeback special, but some wondered about his intentions. Writers like Alana Nash explored the complexities of his decision to break free from Parker's control. Either way, it was a triumph. The 1968 comeback special wasn't just a performance, it was a rebirth, a declaration that he still mattered, that he could still electrify an audience without Hollywood's safety net. The special became a defining moment, one that would shape his future. His bold choices, the live performance, the iconic leather suit, stunned his team, thrilled his fans, and left a lasting impact on music history. It wasn't just a comeback, it was his ultimate revival, proof that the king of rock and roll could still shake the world. His big moment thrilled fans, but what came next would truly make history. Elvis's triumphant return to rock royalty. The special was a high-stakes gamble, a last chance to prove he still had the spark that had earned him the title, the King of Rock and Roll. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, wanted him to stick to safe, pre-recorded segments that would keep the production in line and avoid any risk of failure. But he knew he needed more than a clean-cut, rehearsed show. He needed to be real, raw, and unfiltered. He wanted the world to see the true him, the passionate performer who had captured hearts with every note. This was his opportunity to break free from the Hollywood puppet image he had been boxed into, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. The atmosphere in the studio was electric from the start. As he walked onto the stage, the small studio audience buzzed with anticipation. The intensity in his voice, the sparkle in his eyes, the charisma that radiated from every move, it was all there. Each song brought the crowd closer to him, rekindling memories of the bold, thrilling performer they had loved years before. For the first time in a long time, he was letting fans into his world, peeling back the Hollywood layers and sharing his true self with them. The audience responded with roars of approval, laughter, and cheers, creating an energy that was nothing short of magic. This performance was not merely nostalgic, it was a revelation. There was a fire and urgency in his presence, a sense that he was fighting not only for his career, but for his legacy. He poured his heart and soul into each song, hitting every note with the intensity of a man determined to remind the world why he was the king. And as the night went on, the depth of his passion became more apparent. He wasn't just trying to entertain, he was striving to make a connection, to remind people of the true spirit of rock and roll. During the night, his charisma was palpable. He performed his biggest hits, but he also spoke to the crowd, sharing stories, jokes, and moments of vulnerability that endeared him even more to his audience. This wasn't just about the music, it was about the man behind the music. For the first time in years, he wasn't simply performing a role, he was being himself, and that connection with the audience was unforgettable. It was clear to everyone watching that he wasn't just making a comeback, he was reclaiming his identity as an artist. The sit-down segment of the show was especially powerful. Seated with close friends and bandmates, he played his guitar in an intimate setting, sharing his music with a raw, heartfelt energy. It felt like stepping back into the 1950s, witnessing the young, hungry rock star who had shaken up the music world. The small, stripped-down setup allowed him to shine, highlighting his talent, charm, and magnetism without the distractions of a big production. For many, this was the true him, a man with a passion for music and an undeniable connection to his fans. But the most unforgettable part of the night was when he took the stage in his now iconic black leather suit. Gone were the glittering costumes of his Hollywood days. In their place was a look that screamed rock and roll rebellion. This wasn't the polished movie star. This was the daring performer who had once defied convention, With each song, he delivered an intensity that made it clear he was ready to reclaim his title. The leather suit became more than a costume. It was a symbol of his return to form, a reminder of the defiant young artist who had first captured the hearts of millions. The comeback special wasn't just a concert, it was a message. He was showing the world that he was still here, still passionate, and still worthy of the crown. The risk he took paid off, and critics and fans alike were stunned by his powerful return. Music historians would later call this performance a pivotal moment in his career, a time when he defied the odds and reminded everyone of his talent and strength. It was a turning point that breathed new life into his career, setting the stage for a new era in his journey as an artist. Shortly after the special aired, he rode this wave of newfound energy to a series of live performances in Las Vegas that would become legendary. These shows marked a thrilling return to the stage, where night after night he captivated audiences with his powerful voice and magnetic presence. Some saw these Vegas shows as the pinnacle of his comeback, while others saw them as his fight to stay relevant in a music world that was still evolving. But one thing was undeniable: he was back, and his passion for performing was stronger than ever. Critics and fans had strong opinions on his comeback. Some hailed it as a glorious return, a reminder of the incredible talent that had once defined rock and roll. Others saw it as a last grasp at relevance, a man who was fighting desperately to relive his glory days. But whether people saw it as a triumphant return or a nostalgic revival, his comeback stirred emotions and left an impact on music history that couldn't be ignored. The comeback special solidified his legacy. It showed the world that he wasn't just a fading star. He was a resilient artist determined to stay in the game. He wasn't merely performing to keep his title. He was proving that he still belonged at the top. For one electrifying night, he reminded the world why he was, and always would be, the king of rock and roll. And though time would later reveal the ups and downs that followed in his career, that one night was a shining moment of triumph, a declaration that he was not done yet. To this day, the 1968 comeback special remains one of the most iconic performances in music history. It was more than a concert. It was a statement of resilience, a moment of vulnerability, and an unforgettable chapter in the story of the king. For fans around the world, it was a reminder that he wasn't just a legend from the past. He was a living, breathing force who could still command the stage. And for him, it was a victory. A powerful reminder that, for as long as he was willing to fight, he would always be the king. Did Elvis's comeback secure his legacy, or was it just a nostalgic glimpse of a fading icon? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.